Hello chess friends, welcome back. Today we're returning to the topic of middle game strategy and we'll do so with my favorite theme, which is the theme of dynamism and piece exchanges. Today we'll look at a game by Carlsen that is very clear from this perspective on the concept of when to exchange pieces and when not to. And as I've already mentioned in many other videos, we must base our decisions on dynamism. So what is dynamism? Essentially, it's the activity of our pieces, meaning how proactive we are. And if we are more proactive than our opponent, the position doesn't matter. We could have more pieces or fewer. It doesn't matter. We shouldn't exchange pieces regardless. Anyway, let's jump straight into the game because I think the practical aspect is much more important than the theoretical one here. So let's look at this game by Carlsen against a very strong opponent, international master Praska Souza. This is a game from the 2006 Turin Olympiad. For those who are a bit, let's say, less young than me, you might remember this fantastic event held in Turin in 2006, where I was actually present with my school, I must say, so I experienced it firsthand. And let's look at this game. It was played e4. It's a French defense. Carlsen is white, as you can see, and the classical French with knight c3 was chosen here, which after knight f6 and e5 becomes the Steinitz French. In this position, black consciously accepts, let's say, losing some tempi with the knight, just to have forced white into the push to e5. Where is the gist of all this? It's that white, having placed the knight on c3, cannot defend the center with the classic c3 move usually played in the French. And so black all in all says, okay, I've lost some tempi, but now it's easier for me to destroy your center here. Which is why, in fact, white's main variation, which is obviously also played by Carlsen, is the move f4. Because white understands that his center will be targeted with c5 anyway, and he won't be able to defend it much, so f4 serves to better support the pawn on e5, which would otherwise remain unprotected. So this is the logic behind the variation. Obviously, we're talking about a very main line, so I don't need to add anything else. After knight f3, knight c6, the fight for the center continues, so bishop 3, white strongly defends his center. There are several moves here, several different variations. In this position, I counted, if I'm not mistaken, 7 or 8, all of them playable and decent. Black here decided on this variation. C takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop c5. So let's say it's a variation that immediately liquidates some pieces. In fact, after queen d2, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, and queen takes d4 are played. So black, from this perspective, does something in accordance with his position, in the sense that he has less space and less activity, so he exchanges pieces. However, I often tell you it's fine that we need to exchange pieces, but let's also look at the quality of the exchanges. So from this point of view, it seems good for black to exchange pieces, but black has still traded their good bishop for the bad bishop, and the pieces that, let's say, remain in the position are white's good bishop, you know, the famous bishop that then goes to d3, causing many problems in black's position, and also the knight, which is an active knight. So let's say this position, in my opinion, is still quite good for white. Certainly, white is very comfortable with their dynamic advantage. They have more space and their pieces are more active. And here, at this point, the move queen to b6 is played. And this, for me, is one of the fundamental moments to look at, let's say, because here white has 4 or 5 different moves they could play. According to the computer, they're all fine, but honestly, I strongly agree with Carlsen's choice. Write to me in the because this is a very important position for me, so tell me in the comments what you would have played in this position, because our rule comes into play. Who has more dynamism? White, because white, let's say, has a space advantage and potentially more active pieces. And so it's in black's interest to trade pieces, which is why Carlsen plays queen to d2 here, keeping the queens because he wants to maintain his dynamism. Trading pieces here means losing your own dynamism. This move is obviously not wrong because after knight takes, let's say the position still remains decent for white, right? White is comfortable, has more space in the center, active pieces. In short, it's not bad for white. But black is gradually getting closer and closer to achieving their main goal, which is to simplify the position as much as possible while at the same time trying to survive and hold on. In fact, when we reach the endgame, these 2 pawns that white has might actually turn out to be a little bit weaker than black's pawns, so white could even find themselves struggling to make progress. So for me, the move queen to d2 here makes a lot of sense. Is the truly logical move in this position. White has more dynamism, doesn't trade pieces, queen to d2. At this point, black decides to go for it because, well, they play queen takes b2, so without fear, they take this pawn. Now, although this move is playable and the computer evaluates it as okay compared to others, conceptually, it's a move we should try to avoid. I'll try to explain why. The same reason, the rule is always the same. The rule of dynamism. The dynamism is practically white's. We know this, we've already discussed it. From this perspective, black should be careful about making moves that are a bit too aggressive, right? Like queen takes b2, which obviously loses tempo, allowing white to gain even more development and initiative. So, in my opinion, the move here is not correct from a strategic point of view. The computer says it's fine, but as I always tell you, let's try to take what the computer says with a grain of salt, because it sees tactical lines and continuations that only it understands, which are far from practical human play. So in fact, now this position, let's say it's not going to go very well for black, because after queen a3, knight b5, here we have another problem. The problem is that here, white will enter d6 with a check anyway, and then it's going to be trouble for black's king. White can easily open up the position at some point, maybe first developing the pieces and then opening it up. And that's why black is forced to go all in here, because he also plays queen takes a 2. Because if black played, for example, I don't know, queen c5, moving the queen, knight d6 check comes, the king is forced to probably f8 as the best square. And at this point, white has many very simple ways to play. He can simply develop the pieces. He brings the pieces into play, and then we'll see, since black can't really develop much here anyway, or even more direct. Remember this rule too. When we have a dynamic advantage, obviously we want to open up the game, and so c4. And I must say that black will have a hard time trying to defend this position. So for this reason, we might as well go all in, take the second pawn too, and say, okay, white will certainly be very, very aggressive now. But at least, let's say we try to resist with our material advantage. King to e7, obviously now the rook is under attack, so I have to move it. Rook c1, obviously the rook is already preparing for a move we're all seeing, which is c4. As we said before, white has a huge dynamic advantage. He even sacrificed some pawns to get this, and so he's interested in opening up the game. Here maybe you could notice this alternative, right? Knight takes c8, which obviously goes to take back, let's say, a pawn, the pawn on b7. However, this shouldn't be done, because white too, anyway, if he's not careful, has a king position that's a bit questionable. And so, obviously here, black, in an aggressive way, takes everything back with interest. Do you know why? Because dynamism is like that. Dynamism is ephemeral. It's here now, but just one wrong move and it could vanish. Here, the wrong move would be to exchange this knight, clearly the strongest piece on the board, for this bishop, which, well, is probably worth less than a pawn right now. See? One wrong move and suddenly the dynamism flips. That's why I often tell you it's hard to play with dynamism, because you have to be precise the whole game. At the first mistake, you've already used up, let's say, all your advantage. Obviously, Carlsen is Carlsen, so he doesn't use up the advantage like us mortals. He plays rook c1 because he doesn't want to lose his dynamic advantage. In fact, he wants to increase it by opening the position. Black plays b6 here because he's rightly trying to at least give life to his pieces. And here Carlsen, with great calm, plays bishop e2 with the goal, well, of bringing the other pieces into play. So he wants to castle so that the rook, maybe from f1, can then also participate, who knows, in a possible opening of the game with f5. And black rightly plays queen to a5. This is another key moment in the position where I invite you to pause the video, and maybe you can write in the comments what you think and what move you would have played with white. Because here, Carlsen makes a very, very important and necessary move right in line with our strategic rule. The dynamism is all white's. I even sacrifice material to have this dynamism. I absolutely do not want to lose even a bit of my dynamism. So here, trading queens strategically would be a major mistake, because I lose so much of my dynamism, since the queen is, well, the most proactive piece, which is why Carlsen plays c3 here. Because I must prevent the queen trade, because I'm playing dynamically. I don't want the queens to be traded, so it's a simple move, but one that actually, let's say, requires good strategic knowledge to understand, right? That here, white, in quotes, sacrifices a tempo, because c3 is a lost tempo. It's clear that one day you'll play to make c4, but he sacrifices it because it's necessary not to trade queens. Black here tries to take some space with f5, because otherwise he gets suffocated. And here, with great calm, short castle, queen c5 check, king h1, and after knight f8, another key moment where white plays this move, g4. And here I always reiterate this concept to you. This move might seem scary because obviously it's weakening white's king quite a bit. However, who has the dynamism? White. So that means I can create all the weaknesses in the world, but black cannot attack me because he doesn't have active pieces. And so the weakness is justified by the fact that it can't be exploited anyway. Always keep this concept in mind, because maybe many here wouldn't play g4 because you weaken the king. But if the dynamism is mine, I'm not afraid to weaken the king. I'm the one attacking. And here the rest that follows, let's say, is pure exhibition, with Carlsen opening the position, arranging the pieces. I can already take back this pawn. Here Carlsen actually, instead of, let's say, taking the pawn, decided to be even meaner and to open the position even more vigorously with c4 to enter violently with his pieces. Then after d4, well, he plays knight b7 attacking the queen. Queen moves, he takes d4. Obviously, it's already clear how white is now entering the position. Rook a1 forces the queen to move to enter d6. And now the last thing remains to be done. The only defender holding the position, bishop d5, we remove it. And after that, in this position, there are two very strong attackers, the famous queen and knight tandem, which obviously coordinate against practically zero defenders. Well, one, but this tandem is too strong. You see the king now here. Black obviously resigned. If the king goes here, I can simply even start taking stuff. But it's enough that I put, well, the rook here. And after that, the knight has 20,000 discovered attacks. In short, there's also mate in a few, and so black decided to resign. In my opinion, this was a great game in which, well, this theme, of dynamism helps us understand what dynamism is in the first place and how we should exploit it. So one specific thing is that I absolutely must not trade pieces, and I must play in an energetic way. And Carlsen, despite the fact that in 2006 anyway, okay, let's say he was already a grandmaster, obviously, but he wasn't yet the Carlsen who is world champion, as you can see. He was already a phenomenal player back in 2006. This game is one of many demonstrations that is truly perfect. No mistakes, no slips, both tactically and already exceptional at a strategic level. So I hope that this game helps you understand certain dynamics. And as always, if you want to support the channel, subscribe, like, and leave a comment, and I'll see you all in the next videos.